Proofing ladder. So we've spoken about proofing and what it is. Now, when we're progressing our training, sticking to the proofing ladder will help us fly, okay? So what's the proofing ladder? Keeping it real simple, it's the incremental moves forward we look for when we know we're getting success. So let's have a little talk through. We know that the most minimal distraction point is our home, okay? And we've spoken about even rooms, certain rooms being more distracting than others. So let's start if we are working on a real basic sit, okay? And we're working on that in the bathroom. Again, remember, we're doing this because most minimal distraction point in our house. Now, if I'm able to get a sit 10 times out of 10 upon request from my learner, then I know once I've done that for 3 days, it's time to move up my proofing ladder. The next run of that ladder is the hallway. When I get to the point that I can get that request from my learner, the sit, 10 times out of 10, 3 days in a row, I then know it's time to move up a run on my proofing ladder. Okay, you see how this is going? At this point, we're then going to go to the lounge and we're going to look for our request to be repeated 10 times in a row successfulully for 3 days. We're then going to take another run up the ladder, okay? So we're looking always to climb up our proofing ladder, but making sure we have a bed of success before we put our learner into the next environment. Also remembering that when we move up another run in our ladder, we need to bring things back sometimes because the environment is the hardest thing for our learners, okay? So if we need to take a step down in terms of what we're asking for, and that might mean that we're not going straight to a sit on the new run of the ladder, it might just be working on things such as eye contact or reflex to name before we then move up to our sit. Right, we're in the hallway and we've got our sit successfully 10 times in a row for 3 days, okay? We're now going to go up another run on the ladder. So where's the next step? It's the garden, okay? So we've done the rooms in our home. We're now moving outside of the home, okay? So when we're in the garden, don't just allow access to the whole garden, okay? Let your learner go out beforehand, have a run around, and then pop a lead on, and it's time for training. But we're in the garden, let's just keep it right just outside that back door, okay? Reason being is if we're moving all around, we're making it very hard. So, we're at this run of the ladder. We want our sit 10 times successfully for 3 days in a row, okay? Now, once we get that, I still stay in the garden, but I start to move around the garden, okay? So that is our next run up the ladder, okay? So the garden's split out into 2 parts. So we're moving around, we're asking for our sit, we're getting it successfully 10 times in a row for 3 days. We're then gonna move up a run on our ladder. So we're now popping outside the front of our house, okay? And again, don't start walking all around the neighborhood. Stick to your front porch or driveway. And that doesn't mean the end of your driveway. That means just outside the front door. When we can get our sit 10 times successfully for 3 days in a row, then we're going to move up a run up our proofing ladder, okay? So this would be the end of the driveway. Again, we're looking for our 3-day successful of our request, okay? Once we have that, our next step up our proofing ladder would be moving down the road a couple of doors down. Looking to again get our behavior, our sit, 10 times successfully for 3 days, that far away from our house. So say, for example, we're going to pick 2 doors away from our house. We're then going to move another 2 doors down, okay? Because the reason being is we're getting harder and harder by getting away from our house. Lots of new people around, lots of new smells, lots of exciting things for our learner to take in. Now we've worked on the street for a number of days, okay, so I like to work up to the point where I can be a good 8 houses away from my house. We're then going to run up another ladder, run up another step on the proofing ladder. So at this point, I'm going to look to start going to a field, okay? So I'll pop my learner in the car, I'll go down and I'm going to start practicing on some sits, and I'm going to look to be able to have my learner in a nice quiet part of the park and look to perform our sits for 10 successful attempts for 3 days minimum, okay? Remember guys, if you get 10 successful attempts for 2 days and then the 3rd day you haven't managed to get 10, that means you stay at that run on the ladder, okay? Because you want to get 3 days in a row so you got a nice lot of success under your belt before getting harder. So we're in a nice quiet part of the park, but now it's time to up it again. So what do? We look to move more and more closer to the hustle and bustle in the park, okay? So this is how we run up our runs on the ladder at this point. but we don't want to put our learner right in the middle because it's way too hard, okay? So making sure you're just moving a couple of meters closer to the action for the 3 days of our 10 successful reps before we move a couple more meters closer to the action. Now we've worked through our part, we've worked up the distraction level, we're now right in the middle of everything that's going on. At this point, you've done a lot of successful training and well done to you. You've really worked well through the proofing ladder runs, and now we can get really inventive with thinking about where we go with our training next. Think about local roads where you've got cafes and things like that. Lots of hustle and bustle again, but slightly different to a park. Again though, we need to start from the bottom of this environment. So just on the outskirts of the town, watching in on everything that's going on, building up those behaviors before we move a couple of meters into that environment after our 3 days of successful attempts of the request 10 times. This is your proofing ladder. Please make sure you implement it when doing your training and your training will fire. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please follow along, like and subscribe.